Nora Shin stood frozen on the curved staircase, still clutching the hangover soup she'd simmered for 3 hours. 3 hours she'd never get back. The living room below was dimly lit, the amber glow casting the intertwined figures into something out of an old noir film. Her sister, Stella Shin, wore a burgundy silk slip dress and was draped all over Grant, her legs wrapped around his waist, her laughter dripping with syrupy sweetness, like poison bottled as honey. "Grant, you don't think she'll find out, do you?" Grant let out a low chuckle, his palm pressing against Stella's lower back, pulling her closer. "She's too busy kissing my ass to notice anything. Dumber than a sack of hammers. You think I married her for any other reason? Why did you then?" Her grandfather's got 18% of Huamao Group wrapped up in his will. Marry her and you get half of it. Otherwise, with that boring, quiet personality of hers, I wouldn't have looked twice. Nora stood frozen on the stairs. The soup was still scalding hot. The edge of the ceramic bowl burned against her palm, but she didn't let go. She gripped it tighter. The cook, Mrs. Liu, had told her Grant was drinking heavily at a business dinner tonight, and that she should have soup ready when he came home. She'd done that. She'd waited from 9 in the evening until 1 in the morning. What she got was her husband and her own sister rolling around in a villa her parents had paid for. By the entrance sat Stella's pink suitcase, plastered with stickers. She'd rung the doorbell that afternoon with the most innocent smile. "Sis, I fought with Mom and Dad. Can I crash here for a few days?" "Sure. Why not?" Nora had personally prepared the biggest guest room on the second floor for her, changed the sheets, put out fresh flowers, even swapped the curtains for Stella's favorite hazy blue. Her little sister had always gotten whatever she wanted. That was nothing new. But this was new. Nora turned back to the master bedroom, set the soup bowl on the nightstand, sat down on the edge of the bed, pulled out her phone, opened the voice recorder and walked back to the staircase landing. The two downstairs had migrated from the couch to the carpet. Stella's slip strap had slid off her shoulder, bearing a stretch of pale skin. Grant's phone lay lit up on the coffee table. Nora caught a glimpse of the screen, a WeChat chat interface. The profile picture was a woman. The contact name read Baby. Not Stella. She calmly pressed record, wedged the phone into a gap in the banister, angled just right. Then she returned to the bedroom, pulled an iron lockbox from the deepest corner of her closet, and retrieved a hairpin she'd discreetly made a copy of. The original key was with her mother. Inside the box lay a notarized copy of a document, an equity proxy agreement, and a letter handwritten by her grandfather before he passed. The handwriting was bold and sturdy, written with his left hand after a stroke. Bernard Shin, founder of Huamao Group, had died 3 years ago. A month before his death, he'd called her to his hospital bed, taken her hand and said, "Nianqiu Nora, I'm leaving all 18% of my shares to you. Your mother and sister, they can't handle it. Your father, well, never mind that. This is your security. No one gets to touch it." After Bernard died, Wendy Zhao, Nora's mother, came to her with red eyes, demanding she sign over the shares. "You're young," she'd said. "You don't understand the business. Let the family manage them for you." But Nora wasn't stupid. She'd consulted a lawyer who told her that at 18 she was of full legal capacity, and the shares were hers outright. Wendy wept every day, made scenes. James Shin came to persuade her too. "We're family, why split hairs?" Stella was even blunter. She hurled Nora's mug to the floor and screamed that their grandfather was unfair, that all the good things always went to the eldest daughter. Worn down, Nora signed a proxy agreement. Wendy would hold the shares on her behalf, but ownership would revert to Nora at 25 or upon marriage. It was her mother after all. She trusted that much. She'd been naive. She still had the original copy of that proxy agreement. The original was with Wendy. But what really made Nora's blood run cold was the document at the very bottom of the box. A share transfer agreement, stamped with Huamao's corporate seal and Wendy's private chop, transferring all of Nora's 18% to Stella. Dated 2 months ago. She'd never seen it. Never signed anything. But on the transferor line, in handwriting that mimicked hers with about 70% accuracy, were the words Shin Yanqiu. Nora stared at that document for a long time, until the noises downstairs finally ceased. She photographed every file, locked the originals back in the box, shoved it into the back of her closet, deleted the photo traces from her phone, and saved only an encrypted backup to the cloud. The next morning at 7 she went downstairs and made breakfast as usual. Fried eggs, bacon, toast, fresh orange juice, laid out on the table. Grant came down in his bathrobe. Stella hadn't woken yet. He glanced at Nora the same way you'd glance at a piece of furniture. "You're up early today." "Couldn't sleep." She slid the orange juice toward him, smiling. "Grant, I thought I heard noises from downstairs last night. Did you come home late again?" He took a sip of the juice, expression unchanged. "Yeah, past 2. Don't wait up next time." "Okay." Nora bit into her toast, voice soft. "By the way, did Stella sleep okay? Is the guest room comfortable for her?" Grant's hand paused, barely a hitch, quickly smoothed over. "No idea. Ask her yourself." She didn't push. After breakfast she changed and left the house. She had the recording from last night on her phone, but it wasn't enough. She needed more, enough rope for all of them to hang themselves. She went to Huamao Group headquarters. Huamao had started as a medical device company, built from scratch by Bernard Shen. A third of the public hospitals in the region used Huamao equipment. When Bernard passed, Wendy took over the company with James as deputy general manager. The whole family held the reins tight. Nora had studied finance in college. After graduation she'd asked to join Huamao, but Wendy turned her down flat. "We don't need anyone right now." She stood outside the Huamao building, looked up at the gold-lettered sign, and called her college roommate and best friend, Coco Lin. "Coco, your dad's still at the Commerce Bureau?" "Yeah, why?" Coco's voice was thick with sleep. "It's early. Can you look up Huamao Group's equity change records from the past 3 years? Everything, the more detail the better." Coco paused for 2 seconds, her voice suddenly sharp. "Something wrong?" "Yeah. I'll tell you later." After hanging up, Nora took a cab to the notary office across town. The receptionist was a woman in her 40s, gold-rimmed glasses, neutral and polite. Nora handed over the proxy agreement copy and explained the situation. The woman looked it over and frowned. "This agreement was never notarized. It holds limited legal weight. And you say the shares have already been transferred?" "Yes, without my knowledge." "You can take legal action then. Sue for forged signatures and illegal equity transfer." She slid the document back, a note of sympathy in her tone. "But I should warn you, these cases take a long time. And since it's your mother, prepare yourself mentally." Nora smiled, tucked the papers back into her bag. "I understand. Thank you." She looked too calm. The notary gave her an extra glance, something like worry in her eyes. But Nora knew she didn't need sympathy. She needed only one thing: evidence. Leaving the notary, she received a call from an unknown number. "Am I speaking with Ms. Nora Shen? I'm attorney Mark Shou. Your grandfather, Mr. Bernard Shen, entrusted me with certain documents before he passed, to be delivered to you under specific conditions. Would you be available to meet today?" Nora's fingers tightened around the phone. Mark Shou. She remembered that name. He'd been Huamao's general counsel during Bernard's lifetime. He'd left less than 6 months after Bernard died and then gone off the grid. She'd assumed it was just routine turnover. But now it seemed far from routine. She met Mark Shou at a quiet tea house in the old district, quiet enough that the only sound was water boiling. He looked older than she remembered, half his hair gone gray, but his eyes were sharp as a blade, the kind of shrewdness that came from decades of navigating business sharks. "Miss Shen, long time." He poured her a cup of pu'er. "Your grandfather came to me 3 months before he died. He gave me a file to hold and said, if any of his equity is illegally transferred, or if you suffer injustice within the family, then I'm to give it to you." He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside was a supplemental will, dated 1 month before Bernard's death, with his signature and fingerprint, plus 2 witnesses' signatures and prints. The content was simple. Bernard Shen's 18% stake in Huamao Group was to be bequeathed in full to his granddaughter, Nora Shen, and no one else could dispose of it. If the equity was illegally transferred or seized, Nora had the right to recover all losses and pursue legal action. Additionally, a property in the west of the city, the old family house, was also bequeathed to her, with no interference from anyone. "This is notarized." Mark Shou pointed to the stamp. "Your grandfather saw this coming. He said your mother has a soft ear, your father's ambitious, and your sister's spoiled. Put those 3 together and sooner or later they'd come for you." He told me to pass along one more message. Nora looked up, eyes stinging, but she held steady. He said, Nora's temper is like his, soft on the outside but iron underneath. But sometimes she holds back too much and that'll cost her. He said, tell her not to hold back. Nora drew a deep breath, rolled those words, not to hold back, around in her mind a few times and then laughed. Uncle Mark, I need your help with a few things. Over the next 2 weeks, Nora laid her trap like the most patient of hunters, moving silently and methodically. She hired a professional handwriting expert to analyze the forged transfer agreement. The result was unequivocal. The signature was not hers, it was someone else's imitation. She had 3 copies of the report made and locked the original in a bank safe. Then she hired a private investigator to dig into Grant's finances. What came back was more explosive than she'd imagined. Grant wasn't just seeing Stella. He had another woman, a streamer named Suki Su. He'd funneled nearly 2 million yuan to Suki, and some of it had come from Huamao's corporate accounts. And more. The bank account through which he'd siphoned funds had Wendy Zhao listed as its contact person. Nora stared at the bank statements and felt something close to bitter amusement. Her mother was helping her son-in-law embezzle from the company to keep a mistress, while that same son-in-law was sleeping with her younger daughter. It was too twisted even for a soap opera. She didn't make a sound. She just organized every bit of material into an encrypted drive, password protected with her grandfather's birthday. The 3rd week, opportunity came. Stella's birthday party was thrown at the villa, with Wendy hosting a big celebration for family and friends. Nora, playing the devoted wife, greeted guests, poured tea, smiled at everyone, acting the gracious hostess. When the cake came out, Stella looped her arm through Grant's, whispered something in his ear, and they both laughed. Wendy watched with an indulgent smile as if the scene was the most natural thing in the world. James raised his glass to some business acquaintances, bragging that Huamao would go public next year and everyone present would be an original shareholder. Nora passed by with a tray and caught Stella's voice. Grant got me a birthday gift, a Porsche Cayenne. We pick it up next week. Wendy patted her playfully. Your brother-in-law spoils you. You must thank him properly. Of course. I'll thank him real good. Stella lingered deliberately on the word thank, exchanging a knowing glance with Grant. Everyone around them laughed and ribbed about how generous the brother-in-law was to the younger sister. No one thought it odd. No one looked at Nora. Nora stood at the edge of the crowd, cake tray in hand, her smile perfectly in place. Her mother-in-law, Mei Chen, sidled up to her and muttered, "See how Stella works a room? So charming. 3 years you've been married to Grant and still no baby. I wonder what he ever saw in you." Nora turned to her, took in May's heavily powdered face and smiled. "You're right, Mom. I'll try harder." May sniffed and walked off, glass in hand. After the party wound down, Nora was left to clean up alone. Grant had offered to walk Stella to her room, and they'd gone upstairs and hadn't come back down. The living room was a wreck. Cream smeared over the tablecloth, red wine soaking into half the rug. Nora knelt and scrubbed at the stains one by one. Halfway through she stopped. She pulled out her phone and found a video clip she'd recorded during the cake cutting. In it, Grant's hand rested on Stella's waist, Stella's body leaning into him, while Wendy clapped and James made his speeches. Stitched with the late-night audio recording and the bank statements, those images would make anyone with a moral compass feel queasy. She didn't need their remorse. Their remorse was worthless. She needed to make them pay. Legally, cleanly, leaving them no room to fight back. She finished scrubbing the last stain, tossed the rag in the bin, washed her hands and went to the bedroom. She opened her laptop and wrote the first email. To all shareholders of Huamao Group. She kept it concise, attaching the forensic handwriting report, the supplemental will, and the evidence that Wendy, as proxy holder, had illegally transferred her shares. She wrote, "As the legitimate holder of 18% of Huamao Group's equity, I will convene an emergency shareholder meeting in 3 days to formally challenge the current management's misconduct and exercise my shareholder rights. Please attend." Before sending, she hesitated for 3 seconds. Just 3. Then she hit send. That same night, she packaged Grant's chat logs with Suki Su, the transfers, the hotel records, and fired them off to the official customer service email of Suki's streaming platform, copying every business development address on file. Suki was one of the platform's top earners, clearing millions a year, and her brand was everything. Those receipts would get her account banned, and would also burn whatever bridge was left between her and Grant. Done with that, Nora shut her laptop, lay down on the bed, and closed her eyes. The house was quiet. Quiet enough that she could hear the muffled sounds from the guest room next door. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She felt an odd stillness, like someone walking a long time in darkness finally glimpsing a flash of lightning. She knew the storm was coming. And this time she would not be the one caught in the eye. 3 days later, Huamao's emergency shareholder meeting. The conference room was packed, shareholders murmuring in twos and threes. Wendy sat at the head of the table, her face like stone. James stood at her side, papers clutched in his hand, looking like he'd swallowed a toad. Stella wasn't entitled to be there, but Grant had slipped in. He was present as assistant to the general manager, his expression still light, oblivious to what was about to hit him. Nora wore a navy pantsuit, hair pinned up, makeup clean and sharp. She walked in punctually with Mark Zhou and another man she didn't recognize behind her. Wendy shot to her feet. Nora, what is that email you sent? You're dragging family affairs into the company? Have you no shame? Nora didn't answer. She walked to the one empty seat, set a file on the table, and looked around at the shareholders. Voice even, every word clear. Everyone, I'm Nora Shin, granddaughter of Bernard Shin and legal holder of 18% of Huamao's shares. I asked you here today to lay out a few things. She opened the file and began. She went through it all. The true content of her grandfather's will, the forged signature, the forensic report. Each point anchored with evidence, every number exact. Her tone was flat, businesslike, as if she were giving a routine quarterly report. But the room exploded. Shareholders turned on each other. One stood up, pointing at Wendy. What is this, Wendy? We never saw the original will back then. You said Nora was young and you'd hold the shares as proxy and we trusted you. Now we have a forensic report. Explain yourself. Wendy's face went white as a sheet. Her lips trembled before she forced out. This is a family matter. Nor have you lost your mind? You're suing your own mother? Did someone put you up to this? It's this lawyer, isn't it? She jabbed a finger at Mark Zhou. You were fired from the company. You're just bitter, stirring up trouble between mother and daughter. Mark Zhou smiled, pulled a document from his briefcase and placed it on the table with deliberation. Ms. Zhao, I resigned. Voluntarily. Here's my separation letter, stamped by HR at the time. And this document. This is the notarized original of Bernard Shin's supplemental will, explicitly granting the equity to Nora Shin. Your so-called transfer agreement has been proven forged. Forging a signature, illegal appropriation of another's property. I can remind you of the criminal code penalties if you'd like. Silence fell. James's face had gone from iron gray to chalk white. He tugged Wendy's sleeve and muttered something. Wendy shook him off, eyes locked on Nora, voice shaking. I raised you for 23 years and this is how you repay me? Nora finally looked at her mother. And in that moment she remembered so much. At 8, burning with fever while Wendy took Stella to a dance competition and left her at home alone. Her grandfather had called a cab to take her to the hospital. In high school, Wendy never remembered what grade she was in but could recite Stella's test scores in exact order. The day of her grandfather's funeral, she'd knelt by the altar, sobbing, and Wendy had come up not to comfort her, but to ask if she'd signed the transfer papers. Too many memories. So many she thought she'd gone numb. But looking at Wendy's face, twisted by anger and terror, her heart still wrenched. She held it together. Mom. Nora's voice was soft, barely audible to Mark Zhou beside her. You raised me for 23 years. But Grandpa's will is crystal clear, that 18% is mine. When you forged my signature and transferred it to Stella, did you think about raising me for 23 years? Wendy opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Nora turned back to the room, voice back to its cool professional register. Everyone, I have 2 demands. 1. Restore the share registry to my name immediately and cancel all illegal transfers. 2. The current chairwoman, Wendy Zhao, in collusion with Assistant General Manager Grant Gu, has misappropriated company funds. I've submitted evidence to the Board of Supervisors. That was the bomb. Grant shot to his feet, all trace of ease gone. Nora, you're talking nonsense. When did I ever misappropriate funds? Nora glanced at him, a look devoid of anything, as if he were a stranger. She pulled a stack of bank statements from the file and slid them to the center. These are your transfer records from the past 6 months. 3 large transfers totaling 1.8 million yuan, sent to Suki Su's personal account. The source: Huamao's corporate account, with Wendy Zhao listed as contact. Shall we invite Ms. Su to testify in person? Chaos erupted. Shareholders were livid. Someone slammed the table. Wendy, what the hell is your family doing? Using company money to support your son-in-law's mistress? You think this is your backyard? Wendy was rattled. She didn't know about the embezzlement. She wheeled on Grant, fire in her eyes. Grant, is what she's saying true? Grant's composure was gone. Pale as ash, sweat beading on his forehead, lips moving without sound. Nora didn't look at them again. She stood, tidied the documents, and pushed them to the center of the table. Everyone, all evidence is here. My demands are stated. If the share registry isn't restored within 3 days, I'll file suit and submit a criminal complaint to the police. As for management changes, that's your prerogative. She walked out. Behind her, Wendy's hysterical cries, shareholders' shouts, Grant's helpless denials, all blended into a deafening roar. Nora didn't look back. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, crisp and measured. She stepped into the elevator, pressed ground floor, and let the doors close, cutting off the noise. In the mirrored wall, her reflection stared back. Makeup intact, expression flat. But her hand trembled, from her fingertips to her wrist, uncontrollable. She clutched her bag strap until her knuckles went white. The elevator opened. Sunlight poured through the glass atrium, spilling gold across the floor. Nora walked out of the building, stood on the steps, and took a long, deep breath. Her phone buzzed. Coco. Nora, I got the Commerce Bureau change records, sent to your email. Also, Coco's voice dropped, giddy with excitement. Someone leaked Grant's thing with Suki Su online. Her stream just got shut down. The whole internet is roasting her as a homewrecker. Nora's lips curved slightly. Faster than she'd expected. Let's do dinner tonight. My treat. She hung up, and then another message lit up. Mark Show. At the meeting room door, your father slipped me a note. He wants to talk privately. Nora stared at the message. Her thumb hovered. Then she typed 3 words. Ignore him. She got home after dark. The villa's lights were on. In the living room sat a full panel: Wendy, James, Stella, Grant, and Mei Chin. 5 of them arranged around the couches like a tribunal convened to judge her. Nora changed into slippers, set her bag on the console, and swept her gaze across the room. Stella lunged first, eyes swollen from crying but her aggression intact. She raised her hand to slap Nora's face. You bitch. Was it you who reported Grant to the platform? Trying to ruin the whole family. Nora sidestepped, caught Stella's wrist at the exact pressure point and held, not hard but precise. Stella squealed. Let go. That hurts. Nora didn't release. She looked past Stella to the others. Wendy's eyes were red-rimmed, her voice hoarse, looking at Nora like a stranger. You humiliated me at the shareholders' meeting. Do you have no heart? I didn't know about the embezzlement, but to shame me in public. Mei Chin chimed in, leaning forward with her bulk. I've said it all along, she's no good. 3 years in this family and not a baby, and now she's suing her own man? It's rebellion. Grant, divorce her, now. Grant sat in the corner, head bowed, silent. He'd been like that since the meeting. A kicked dog, nothing like the man who'd rolled around on the carpet with Stella. James was the only one who didn't speak. He sat beside Wendy, his cigarette burning a long ash untouched, his eyes complex on Nora. His lips moved but no words came. Nora let go of Stella's wrist and gave her a gentle push back. Stella stumbled into the coffee table and yelped. First, Nora said, each word a nail driven into the floor. The shares are mine. Grandpa's will makes that clear. Forging my signature is a crime. Not me pushing anyone but you breaking the law. Second, Grant embezzled money to keep his mistress. I've submitted the records. Instead of yelling at me, you'd better think about explaining that money to the shareholders. Third. She turned to Mei Chin and smiled. Mom, you say I've given no baby. But Grant had a physical 6 months ago. Sperm motility and morphology both out of range. The doctor recommended further testing for organic issues. So the infertility isn't on my side. The report's in my nightstand drawer. Want me to get it? Mei Chen's mouth formed a perfect O. Her jowls quivered. She whipped her head toward Grant. Grant, is that true? Grant jerked his head up, white as a ghost, unable to force out a single word. Mei Chen's face cycled through red, white, purple, then settled into an ugly liverish hue. Her mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Stella, clutching her bruised hip, looked at Grant with fresh eyes. Nora didn't wait. She turned and went upstairs, locked the bedroom door behind her, sat on the bed and slowly exhaled. Outside, the city lights glittered. She scrolled through the online storm. Suki's stream was shut down, hashtags multiplying, comments burning with rage. Some had found photos of Suki and Grant together. Someone claimed Grant was the Huamao son-in-law. The fire was out of control. He checked the shareholder group chat. Hundreds of messages. Most were cursing Wendy and Grant. Some proposed Wendy's immediate removal. A few privately messaged her, asking if she'd take over. Nora put the phone down and lay back. The ceiling was white, a crystal chandelier dangling above. Grant's pick, he'd called it classy. She stared at it, then decided, tomorrow she'd have it torn out. Her phone lit up again. James. A long text. Nora, Dad knows you've been wronged all these years. Your mother and Stella. I saw it all, but I was too cowardly to speak. I don't blame you for what happened today. You earned it. But your mother's your mother after all. She really didn't know about the embezzlement. Could you maybe? She deleted it without reading the rest. She remembered the last line of her grandfather's letter. Nora, in this house no one truly cares for you but me. Your father isn't evil, but he's weak. Weak enough to enable everything. Don't rely on him. Bernard had read people with a lifetime's eye. Nora closed her eyes. In her mind replayed the shareholders' meeting, Wendy's furious, guilty face, Grant's gutless terror, Stella's entitlement, May's instant deflation. Round and round until it all coalesced into one feeling. Satisfaction. But she knew this was only the beginning. The equity wasn't fully settled. Wendy wouldn't go quietly. Grant's hole was deeper than 1.8 million. The PI said he had gambling debts too. Stella's Porsche deposit had come from corporate funds. All of it was about to blow. And her job was to stand in a safe place and watch them blow themselves apart. Her phone lit again, an unfamiliar number, one line. Miss Shin, this is Suki Sue. I'd like to talk about Grant. Nora's lips curved. Interesting. The woman used as a weapon was finally realizing she'd been used. And now she wanted to flip? Nora didn't reply yet. She turned her phone over, rolled onto her side and pulled the blanket tight. Tomorrow, retrieve the safe deposit files, meet Mark Zhou about the lawsuit, feel out the friendly shareholders, list the villa. The house was in her name, the down payment from her grandfather's money. Grant hadn't paid a cent, yet he'd slept in it for 3 years with her sister in the bed she'd bought. She wasn't keeping that house. As for Grant, Stella, Wendy, May, they'd soon learn the real storm hadn't even arrived. And this time the one standing in its center would not be handing out umbrellas. 3 days later, Huamao's official website posted a short announcement. Wendy Zhao had resigned as chairwoman for personal reasons. The board was selecting a successor. That same day, Nora filed a lawsuit naming Wendy and Stella for forged signatures and illegal equity appropriation. Word of the lawsuit leaked, hitting local financial headlines. Huamao's stock dropped 5 points that day. Panicked shareholders came to Nora in waves, begging her to consider the big picture and drop the case. He saw none of them. She stayed in a hotel, her old phone off, a new number known only to Mark Zhou and Coco. Her days were quiet and disciplined. Morning runs, breakfast, documents, afternoons with the legal team, evenings reviewing progress. A rhythm she could rely on. The one surprise came when Stella showed up at her hotel. Nora had just returned from an errand to find her sister in the lobby, in a tight fuchsia dress and 10-inch heels, makeup fresh but eyes red. She'd clearly cried and fixed it. When Stella spotted Nora, she hurried over, and the first words made Nora almost laugh. "Sis, I'm pregnant." Nora stopped and looked at her. Stella bit her lip, eyes filling again, voice dripping with aggrieved entitlement. "It's Grant's. I know I wronged you, but the baby's innocent. Can't you, for the baby's sake, drop the suit? Let Mom off? We can talk about the shares later. I won't fight you anymore. Just have pity on your sister." "Whose?" Nora cut in. Stella blinked. What? The baby whose? Nora repeated, slow and flat. Stella's face flushed scarlet. Grant's, of course. What are you implying? Sue has a baby too, also Grant's. Nora said it deadpan, watching Stella's blush drain to corpse white. Why don't you two compare notes first? Or get a paternity test? Whoever's is real can claim child support. But heads up, Grant's got at least $3 million in gambling debt. You think he can afford to raise a kid? Stella's lips quivered. The tears finally spilled, not from guilt but from fear. $3 million? You're lying. Grant told me. Told you what? That he doesn't love me, only you? That he embezzled to buy you a car? That he'd divorce me and marry you? Nora smiled, light and thin as a leaf on water. Stella, you've always thought you were smarter, prettier, more worthy of love than me. But this man you stole, he's $3 million in the hole, embezzling for a streamer, and he's the one with fertility problems. You fought so hard for this, how does it feel? Stella stumbled back, heels screeching on marble. Her phone screen was lit. Nora glimpsed Grant's WeChat bubble with the last message. Baby, can you spot me 200,000? I'll pay you back by month end. Sent that morning. Stella probably didn't know that while she was here, confronting her sister, her devoted lover was hitting up her friend for gambling money. Nora walked past her toward the elevator. As the doors closed, she saw Stella collapse onto the lobby sofa, phone clutched to her chest, shoulders heaving. The elevator rose, numbers ticking. Nora leaned against the wall and exhaled. She thought of all the small surrenders, age 5 Stella taking her doll, Wendy saying, she's little, give in. Age 12 Stella ripping up her outstanding student certificate, James saying, sisters shouldn't quarrel. Age 20 at Bernard's funeral, Stella screaming selfish because the shares should be split equally. She'd held her tongue and signed the proxy. She'd yielded for 23 years. She wouldn't yield anymore. The elevator chimed. She returned to her room, called Mark Show. Uncle Mark, pull Grant's asset and account records. And have the PI watch him, he'll probably contact loan sharks soon. Got it. Also, Mark paused. Your father called my office 3 times. Wants to meet you. He said, I have things to give Nora, about her mother and sister. Nora was quiet for a few beats. James Shin, the supposedly meek, quiet father. Bernard had said he wasn't bad, just weak. But when weak men were cornered, sometimes they did surprising things. Tell him tomorrow afternoon at the cafe downstairs, she said. Just me. She hung up and stood at the window watching boats on the river. The sky darkened. Lights blinked on along the opposite bank. Her phone lit again, an unknown text. Miss Shin, this is Suki. Grant came to see me today. He said he wants to take me away. He seems off, really off. Be careful. Nora stared at the message, then called the PI. Where's Grant now? Small hotel near the East bus station. He checked out, went to a used car lot, sold his BMW X5 below market for cash. 15 minutes ago he got into a black van with no plates heading north. Nora's gut clenched. He was liquidating, running. She texted Mark Show, grabbed her coat and called a board member, her voice crisp. Mr. Zhang, Grant selling assets and about to bolt. Freeze every account and asset under his name. Now. Reliable. Reliable. He's heading north, I've got eyes on him. Underway. In the garage she sat behind the wheel, fingers drumming. She thought about loan sharks, men with no scruples. If a cornered man like Grant had nowhere left to turn. She started the engine and drove. Through the bustle into the older part of town, until she stopped before an unassuming residential building. She climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked on a door. A woman in her 50s opened it, reading glasses perched, a brush still in hand, ink fragrance wafting out. Miss Lin Chin, sorry for the late visit. Nora. Lin Chin looked surprised, then waved her in. Come in, it's been ages. Your grandfather would be happy to know you came by. Lin, retired handwriting expert and Bernard's old friend. She'd done the forensic report Nora used. Miss Chin, I need another favor. Nora pulled out her phone, showed a photo of the forged Shin Yanqiu signature on the transfer agreement. You said it wasn't mine. But, does it look like anyone I know? Lynn studied it through her glasses, then pulled out samples. Wendy, James, Stella, Grant's handwriting, and compared them. After 10 minutes she looked up, serious. Nora. These samples don't match. Meaning, whoever wrote this isn't you, but also not your mother, father, sister, or husband. She handed Nora a magnifying glass, pointing at a stroke curve. See this? The writer has practiced brushwork, years of it. Even pressure-restrained strokes. None of your samples show that. Nora's mind raced. Who in her circle had that kind of handwriting? Then it hit her. Machen. Retired elementary school teacher who'd taught calligraphy for decades. She shot to her feet. Miss Cheen, can you write a supplementary report showing the signer has professional calligraphy training? I'll bring a sample from my suspect tomorrow. Yes. Lynn studied her with a grandmotherly concern. Nora, what exactly are you investigating? Nora took a breath and let it out. Miss Cheen, I'm investigating a nest of thieves. Outside Lynn's place, Nora sat in the car, piecing it together. Wendy forged the transfer, but the signature wasn't Wendy's. May was a calligraphy teacher, capable of imitating. Grant embezzled through accounts with Wendy as contact. Stella seduced Grant, but Grant had Suki too. These were scattered beads. Where was the string? Then it hit her. Why would May sign the transfer? What was in it for her? If the equity went to Stella and Stella was with Grant, then eventually that 18% would land in Grant's hands. And Grant was May's son. Her blood chilled. She'd thought Wendy was the mastermind. But Wendy might have been a puppet. The real spider might not be her family at all. Her phone buzzed. Mark Show. Miss Shin, I have results on May Chen's finances. She registered a medical device sales company a year ago. 2 million yuan registered capital. The actual investor isn't her. It's an overseas account. And that account's holder? Stella Shin. Nora tightened her grip on the wheel. Stella's never left the country. Correct. The account was opened through an agent. The agent fee came from May's personal account. And that medical device company's main business? Supplying Huamao Group. In the past year, it's won over 6 million yuan in purchase orders from Huamao. 6 million. Stella's overseas account, May's company Huamao's purchase orders. All one line. A blood-sucking pipeline from Huamao. And at the hub, Grant in charge of procurement. Nora laughed softly. She thought it was just a family melodrama. It was a full-blown corporate heist. May and Grant had been planning for a year. Stella was just a tool for equity access. Maybe Stella knew. That account was in her name after all. She texted Coco, pull full corporate records for a company, I'll send you the name. Then she drove, eyes fixed ahead. She'd come to reclaim what was hers. But now she'd also rip out the entire parasite sucking Huamao's lifeblood. And to do that she needed more evidence. The next afternoon, the hotel cafe. Nora arrived early, ordered 2 Americanos, took a window seat. She wore a cream knit top, hair loose, looking relaxed. Nothing like the woman who'd eviscerated her family in the boardroom. James Shin came precisely on time. He looked older. Bags under his eyes, white hair thicker at the temples. His worn jacket, stooped shoulders. He seemed like a tree bent by a wind that hadn't stopped. He sat across from her, fingers twisting. Finally, Nora, you've lost weight. She didn't respond. She slid the coffee toward him. What did you want to talk about? He pulled a wrinkled envelope from his jacket, slid it across. Inside, papers and a small USB drive. Things your mother hid at home, he said, not meeting her eyes. I made copies. There's an agreement between her and May Chin. Some audio recordings of your mother and Stella. The USB has May's company books. Not complete but enough to see the problem. Nora read through the documents. Her expression grew colder. A profit-sharing agreement between Wendy and May. Core clause. After Stella acquired the 18% stake, 40% of the annual dividends from that equity would be paid to May as management consulting fees. Term, 10 years. Management consulting fees. For a retired calligraphy teacher? She almost laughed. This was a payoff schedule. Wendy taking 60, May 40, carving up Bernard's legacy. Stella was just a pawn between two mothers. Wendy wanted control through her daughter. May wanted profit through her future daughter-in-law. A mutual backscratch. Nora photographed the docs, then turned the USB in her fingers. How'd you get this? James gave a bitter laugh, took a sip of coffee, hand trembling. May came to the house last week screaming at your mom. I heard through the door. She said her son was being investigated, books couldn't be balanced. She wanted Wendy to cover. Wendy said no. May said she had a backup of the company books. If she went down, they'd all go down. After May left, Wendy panicked and ran out. I searched her study, found a hidden compartment in the bookcase. He looked up at Nora, eyes red, voice cracked. Nora, I haven't been a good father. But your mother, she was led astray by May. Could you maybe? No. Nora cut him off. She forged my signature. He transferred my shares. No one led her there. She signed a deal with May, carved up Grandpa's legacy. No one led her there either. Dad, you're still making excuses for her. James opened his mouth, pain flickering across his face. He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. Nora tucked the envelope into her bag, stood and looked down at her father, the man who'd never hurt her but also never protected her. His silence and passivity had wounded her more than Wendy's favoritism or Stella's cruelty. But at least he'd done one thing right. I'll verify the USB. Her voice softened just slightly. If it helps put May and Grant where they belong, I won't hesitate. As for Mom, she paused, her account with me is separate. She walked out. At the door, James's voice came thin and broken. Nora, I'm sorry. She stopped. Just for a second. Then she pushed open the door. Outside, the sun was blinding. She squinted at a cloudless sky. She didn't look back at the stooped figure in the cafe. Because if she did, she might soften. And she couldn't afford to soften anymore. Back in her hotel room, she plugged in a USB. The company's books were crude but effective. Large gaps labeled consulting fees or channel maintenance with no supporting contracts. Typical shell company laundering. She cross-referenced with Huamau's purchase orders from the past year and found at least a dozen suspicious transactions. Each paid 30 to 50% above market rate, all approved by Grant. Mother and son, one inside, one outside, bleeding Huamau dry. Nora closed the laptop, massaged her temples. Through the window, dusk was falling, boats' lights trailing gold over the water. She called Suki's number. It rang twice, a woman's voice tensely trembling. Miss Shen? Suki. Let's meet. They met at a quiet sushi place by the river. Suki was younger than Nora expected. Early 20s, delicate features still striking without makeup. But her eyes were swollen, her demeanor drained, a world away from the glamorous streamer persona. Nora poured her tea. You said Grant came to see you, what happened? Suki's hands shook as she sipped. He showed up at my door night before last, looking terrible. Messy clothes, bloodshot eyes, reeking of alcohol. He said he was finished. Company was auditing him, he'd go to prison. Then he asked me for money. Everything I'd saved from streaming. Said he'd take me abroad. What did you say? I refused. Suki's eyes welled up. I didn't know he was married when we met, he said he was single. When all that came out online, I realized I was duped. I broke it off. He threatened to expose me, ruin my reputation. Mission, I know. Nora's tone was flat, neutral. He spent company money on you. You're a victim too. Suki broke down, sobbing into her hands, voice muffled. I saved over $1 million, he took almost all of it. He said it was loans but never paid a cent. I was afraid to report him, he knows shady people. He once bragged drunk about knowing loan sharks who could fix problems. Nora's stomach tightened. Loan sharks. Violent collections, illegal detention. Grant, cornered by debt and audits, would get desperate. Suki, I need you to do something. Her voice was steady. I have most of the embezzlement evidence. But if you voluntarily testify to the police about his threats and extortion, he'll get additional charges. Longer sentence. Suki looked up, hesitated, then nodded hard. I'll cooperate. My image is destroyed anyway. I've got nothing left to lose. Nora smiled, pulled out a tissue, handed it over. You won't have no way out. After this, I can connect you with legitimate work. Good streamers don't need scandals to survive. Suki stared at her, crying harder. Why help me? I wronged you. You didn't wrong me. Nora lifted her teacup, blue on the surface. The one who wronged me is a Mr. Gu. Between us, there's no score. After the sushi place, Nora walked along the river. The night wind carried the damp smell of water, stirring her hair. Across the river, neon signs painted fractured reflections on the black surface. Her phone buzzed. Coco, OMG. followed by a torrent of screenshots. Anonymous posts on local social channels were accusing Wendy of forging signatures and stealing from her daughter, complete with partial screenshots of the transfer agreement and the forensic report. Comments were roasting her alive. "You're doing," Nora called. Coco's voice was gleeful and guilty. "I just, lightly, gently fanned the flames. Totally legal. Based on public court filings and Commerce Bureau records. Purely reasoned speculation." "Thanks." Nora smiled. "Good timing." "Well, duh." Coco sobered. "But watch out, your mom will fight back. She'll sling mud." "Let her." Nora looked at the lights. "The more she slings, the more holes open up. I've got her profit-sharing agreement with May and the shell company books. Once those drop, how does she spin it?" Coco was silent for 3 full seconds, then spoke with something like awe. "Nora, when did you start laying this out?" Nora didn't answer. She found a bench and sat down watching boats pass. She thought of Bernard, who loved taking her on walks here, pointing. "Nora, see those boats? They look slow, but they're headed the right way. They'll reach the dock. The fast ones going the wrong direction, they get nowhere." She'd held that close. Direction matters. She could wait. 3 days later, the public storm was unstoppable. Local media were all over Huamao's family drama. Wendy was mocked as Mother of the Century. Mei Chen's name and her shell company were exposed online. Huamao's stock had fallen for almost 2 weeks. Shareholders demanded a special board meeting to remove Wendy and pursue Grant. Then Grant resurfaced. He called Nora on a new number, his voice like sandpaper, desperate. He wanted to meet, their old steakhouse, for old times' sake. She agreed, not for old times, but because a desperate man who asked for a meeting wasn't looking for nostalgia. He'd make a last play or a last deal. She'd need it on tape. She took precautions, sent time and place to Mark Zhou and the PI, with instructions to have people nearby. If Grant tried anything, police would be called. At the meeting, Grant arrived early. He sat in the darkest corner, hunched in a wrinkled black shirt, bearded, hollow-cheeked, a ghost of himself. A glass of water sat before him. His knuckles drummed the table, fast and frenetic. Nora sat across, purse by her side, phone face down, recording. "You said it was important." Grant stared at her, a maelstrom of resentment, bitterness, fear, and something like mad resolve. Then he smiled, teeth yellowed and unsettling. "Nora, you won." His voice was low, deliberately meek. "You've got the shares, the public, the shareholders. I'm finished. But there's one thing left." She waited. "I'm asking you, let my mother go." He leaned in, voice dropping. "She helped set up the shell company, kept the books. She just wanted her son to have a better life. No malice. Take me, the embezzlement was me, the spending was me. Let her off. Please." Nora raised an eyebrow. Grant, for all his faults, had a sliver of feeling for his mother. Or more likely, May had something he still needed to protect. He suspected the latter. "What about the profit-sharing agreement? Did you know?" Grant blinked, confused, then scanning the document she slid across. His face cycled through confusion, shock, fury. His fingers whitened around the paper, his voice cracking. She cut a deal with your mom? Behind my back. She never told me." Nora watched his reaction. Genuine. He hadn't known. May and Wendy, each with their own schemes, had cut deals that even the son was blind to. Stella and Grant were just pawns in their mother's hands. "Seems your mom didn't tell you everything." She retrieved the agreement. "Grant, you want to plead for her. But here's something else. The signature on the transfer agreement. The forensic report shows it wasn't me, wasn't Wendy, wasn't Stella. It was your mother." Grant's eyes bulged. "Impossible. The report's at my lawyer's office." Nora leaned back. She was in the game from the start, not some innocent mother. She's one of the masterminds. That shell company's backers are her and Stella. You want to take all the blame for her? You think you can?" Grant's face went ash-gray. He slumped, lips moving soundlessly, fingers gouging marks into the tabletop. A battery-powered toy with its cells ripped out. Nora waited a few seconds, then stood, purse over shoulder, and walked for the exit. She felt his stare on her back, didn't stop. At the door, a screech of chair legs and Grant's cracked voice erupted. "Nora, you'll regret this." She pushed through into the sunlight. Out on the sidewalk, she looked up at a bright sky, breathed deep, and saved the recording. Encrypted, backed up. The PI texted, "Grant booked a car and driver through a loan shark website. Fake ID, but we traced the IP. He's running." Nora pocketed her phone, glanced up at the drawn curtain on the second-floor window where Grant was still sitting, probably making calls, scheming. She got in her car, didn't start it yet. Fingers traced a slow arc on the wheel as she queued up the next moves. 1. Send the recording to Mark as evidence Grant knowingly conspired to protect May. 2. Alert the board to accelerate asset freezes. 3. Feed the loan shark info to the Economic Investigation Unit already on the case. After that, one more stop. Not the villa, she'd listed it. She'd go to the old house where she'd grown up, where Wendy and James still lived. One debt remained to be settled face to face. 3 days later, Nora stood at the door of the old house. It was a dated duplex, once white paint, now yellowed and peeling, but the garden was meticulous, clearly maintained. The copper wall lamp above the porch, Bernard's pick, had mellowed with age. She rang the bell. Stella opened the door in rumpled loungewear, a messy top-knot, sallow face, cracked lips, haggard as if she'd been ill. At the sight of Nora, her expression flashed through surprise, fury, fear, landing on bravado. "What are you doing here?" She stepped back, voice shrill. "You're not welcome." Nora brushed past her into the living room. It looked as she'd expected. Wendy on the couch, cold tea before her, red-eyed and drained. James sat in a wing chair, hunched, an unlit cigarette between his fingers. "What are you doing here?" Wendy's voice was raw, same words as Stella's but a different tone. Not defiant, worn, frightened. Nora sat across from Wendy, opened her bag and spread documents across the coffee table. The proxy agreement, the forged transfer, the forensic report, Bernard's supplemental will, the Wendy May profit-sharing agreement, the shell company books, the embezzlement records, and a court filing notice. "I'm here to talk terms," Nora said. Wendy's face went pale as she scanned the papers, translucent almost. Her lips trembled, voice thin. "What do you want?" Nora slid a settlement agreement forward. Its terms were clear. Wendy would restore Nora's share registration and waive all claims. Wendy would resign from Huamao management and commit to no further involvement. Wendy and Stella would jointly bear civil liability for the forged transfer, with damages calculated at fair market value, and Wendy would cooperate with authorities in providing evidence against Mei Chin for the forged signature. Fair. Evidence-based. No vindictive extras, but no forgiveness either. Wendy read it, red rimming her eyes. She looked up with a desperate plea. "Nora, your sister's pregnant." Grant ran and left her. "Her health isn't good. She gets a criminal record." "Mom!" Stella shrieked, grabbing Wendy's arm. "Don't beg her. I don't need her pity. Who does she think she is?" "Shut up." Wendy yanked her arm away. "Can't you see? She has the forensic report. That signature was your future mother-in-law's. If you don't sign, the next one going to jail is your husband's mother. Maybe you too." Stella staggered back, real fear finally cracking through her defiance. Her mouth opened, closed, words stuck. Nora watched. She'd seen Stella arrogant, wheedling, vicious, but never truly afraid. And in Wendy's words she heard something else. Not your husband, but that man's mother. No loyalty. No comfort. Wendy was only worried about herself. The truth beneath the surface. Maybe Wendy had never really loved Stella. She'd loved the obedient daughter who could help her get shares. Now that daughter was useless and Wendy was scrambling to distance herself. "You have 3 days to decide." Nora stood, glanced at James, gave a small nod, said nothing. She headed for the door. As she passed Stella, her sister rasped, "Sis, Grant's gone. What do I do?" Nora paused, half-turned. "The man you stole, I never wanted him anyway." The door closed behind her. A light drizzle fell, cold with early winter. She stood on the porch, looked up at Bernard's copper lamp, rain darkening its weathered face. She opened her umbrella and walked into the rain. Behind her, light poured from the old house's windows, warm but stale like tea gone cold. She'd grown up there, been overlooked, neglected, schemed against. But also there, Bernard had taken her hand and given her the shares. And those 2 words, "Don't hold back." She owed the house nothing now. Back in the car, her phone buzzed. Mark show. Good news and not so good. Good first. The board has officially removed Wendy and Grant. Your share registration restoration is underway, should finish in 3 days. And the Economic Investigation Unit has opened a case on Grant. Nora leaned back, watching raindrops race down the windshield. Good news expected. The not so good? Police traced the shell company's money flow. Part of it went to an overseas account. The ultimate beneficiary, your father, James Shen. Nora's fingers tightened on the phone. James. Yes. Mark's voice was heavy. He knew. He was in on it. Nora closed her eyes. She remembered James sliding her that envelope in the cafe, his stooped back, his, "I'm sorry." She thought he was a weak bystander. Bernard said he wasn't bad, just weak. But he wasn't. He never had been. He was the hidden figure collecting money in the background. Wendy charged ahead. May fanned the flames. Stella and Grant danced on stage, and James sat in the corner smoking, pretending silence, while his overseas account held money stolen from her. Uncle Mark. Her voice came out steady, surprising her. Send James's account records to the Economic Investigation Unit. Already done. Mark paused. Miss Shen, are you all right? She didn't answer. She set the phone down, gripped the wheel, and sat in the silence. The rain intensified. Wipers swept rhythmically. Outside, everything blurred into damp halos of light. Street lamps, pedestrians, shop signs. She thought of James teaching her to ride a bike, a chocolate bar he'd brought home from work, his apologetic looks when Stella bullied her. Moments she'd once read as clumsy, unspoken love, now reread through a new lens. Maybe he taught her to ride because Wendy told him to. Maybe the chocolate was on sale. Maybe those looks weren't guilt but knowledge he couldn't confess. Bernard's words, your father's not evil, but too weak. Even Bernard had been fooled. Or maybe he knew and couldn't bear to tell her, couldn't bear to make her lose her father too. She started the car, pulled out into the rain-soaked streets. The city had a quiet beauty in this downpour, neon bleeding like wet ink on dark canvas. She turned on the stereo, random shuffle, and Bach's Goldberg variations flowed out. Bernard's favorite. She felt suddenly as if he was still with her. In the iron box, in the letter, in Mark Zhou's sealed envelope, in Lin Qin's handwriting analysis. Wherever she'd seemed alone, he'd already left her weapons. She was never alone. A month later, Grant was arrested at a bus station in a neighboring province. He was trying to buy a ticket to the border with fake ID. In his bag, 50,000 cash, phony bank cards, and a passport with his photo under a false name. Local media reported the arrest succinctly: former executive of a medical device firm detained on embezzlement charges. But the online community pounced, celebrating with the hashtag Karma's a bitch. That same week, Huamao held an extraordinary shareholders meeting, officially removing Wendy from the board. Nora's 18% was restored, and with additional share purchases, she became the largest shareholder at 23%. The board nominated her as chairwoman. The applause in the conference room was long and loud. She sat in the chair her grandfather once occupied, looking down the long table at all those faces, and felt not exhilaration but a deep, grounded peace. Her first acts: rehiring Mark Zhou as general counsel, restructuring the audit department to review all procurement contracts from the past 3 years, and forwarding all shell company evidence to the police. Mei Chen was arrested at home. She'd been playing mahjong at a parlor downstairs on a hot streak, so the neighbors said. When the police van pulled up, her face went whiter than the mahjong tiles. Charges: embezzlement and document forgery. Her case was bundled with Grant's. The shell company funds traced back to his embezzlement. Mother and son together at last. Stella miscarried. No one pushed her. No one harmed her. The doctors said her health had been fragile, compounded by stress and poor diet. The pregnancy ended at 9 weeks. She called Nora from the hospital, crying wordlessly into the phone. Nora listened for a long time. Rest up, she said. When you can walk, come see me. Then she hung up. This wasn't forgiveness. She knew that. She just wouldn't kick someone when they were down. She wasn't like them. Wendy signed the settlement. She left the city for a small seaside town in the south. Someone said she opened a flower shop. Others said she just rented a place and walked the beach. Nora didn't verify. Before she left, Wendy sent one WeChat message: take care. Nora didn't reply. James's case was the last to wrap. The Economic Investigation Unit traced the full path from the shell company money to his overseas account. He'd received nearly 2 million yuan in payouts. The day he was taken in, Nora went to see him. The corridor outside the interrogation room was long, lit with cold fluorescents, smelling of disinfectant and old cardboard. James was let out in cuffs and saw her through the glass. His hair in just a month had gone 2/3 gray. The lines on his face were deep as cuts. He picked up the phone, was silent a long moment, then whispered, "Nora, I'm sorry." Nora looked at the haggard face behind the glass and felt nothing. No anger, no grief, no disappointment, not even a flicker of satisfaction. Just the quiet recognition of a stranger. "The money you took, it was Grandpa's lifetime work," she said evenly. "It should have gone to employee bonuses, to hospital equipment upgrades, to R&D. What you stole wasn't just my thing. It was his legacy. I don't have the right to forgive you for him." James's lips quivered violently. Tears rolled down his lined face, splattering on the counter. Nora hung up, stood, and walked out. At the end of the hallway, she pushed the door open. Sunlight flooded in, making her squint. She stood on the steps and drew a deep breath of cold winter air. The old, heavy congestion in her chest finally lifted. That night, she drove to the old house in the west part of the city. Bernard's bequest, she'd never come. Not because she didn't want to, but because the time hadn't been right. After leaving the detention center, she suddenly needed to see it. It was a standalone 2-story building with gray brick and dark tiles. A huge osmanthus tree dominated the courtyard, its trunk needing 2 people's arms to encircle. In full bloom, golden blossoms scented the air like spilled honey wine. She stood beneath it, looking up, and remembered being very small. Bernard would hold her on his lap in a wicker chair under this tree, pointing out the Big Dipper and Polaris, telling stories about farming as a boy, coming to the city with 200 yuan at 30, founding Huamao, sitting under this tree the night he got his business license and drinking tea all night. "Grandpa, why do you love osmanthus best?" she'd asked. He'd said, "It doesn't compete with spring flowers. It blooms in autumn when all the others have faded. But its scent carries for blocks. You smell it from far away. People are the same. You don't need to bloom first, just need your own fragrance." She was too young to fully understand. But she remembered the scent. Nora sat on the doorstep, back against the weathered wooden door, looking up as moonlight filtered through the osmanthus, scattered silver coins. She pulled out Bernard's wrinkled supplemental will and turned to the last page. Beside his signature in his left-handed scrawl, he'd written, "Nora, you are much stronger than you know." She looked at those words, 3 years since he died, and finally wept. Not from bitterness, not grief, not from anyone's betrayal, but because she'd finally proven him right. He was stronger than she knew. 3 months later, Huamao Group issued a short announcement. Nora Shin had officially been appointed chairwoman and CEO. The accompanying photo showed Nora in her office. Smoke gray suit, hair swept back, city skyline behind her. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes held light. Within an hour, the comments exploded. Someone traced the entire family drama arc from 3 months prior, weaving the story together. Shares topped 10,000. The top comment, "She took back every dime that was hers." Nora didn't read them. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows looking down at the city. Winter sun warmed her face like Bernard's hand on her head. This building, these streets, part of them had been his. Now she'd guard them. Her office door opened. Mark Zhou stepped in with a file. "Miss Shin, next board agenda, new product line investment proposal. Also, Stella was discharged this morning. She sent word she'd like to see you." Nora accepted the file, opened it, didn't look up. Did she say why? No, just that she wanted to. Nora was quiet for a beat, then closed the file, picked up her pen, and signed her name on the cover page. Neat strokes, sharp and confident, with something of Bernard's hand. "Tell her to come tomorrow." Mark nodded, turned, paused. "Uncle Mark." "Yes. Thank you." Nora looked at him, voice soft. "Thank you for keeping Grandpa's file. Thank you for seeing me through this." Mark smiled, lines crinkling around his eyes. "You're welcome. I just did what your grandpa asked." He paused, voice softer. "If he could see you now, he'd be proud." Nora's smile was small but real. When the door closed, she turned back to the window. The winter sun was sinking, gilding half the city as if someone had poured champagne to celebrate. She thought of the osmanthus tree, of "Don't hold back," of the girl trembling on the staircase with hangover soup, of the woman slapping evidence on the table and nailing her enemies to the wall. From that night to this dusk, the space between was a section of her old life she'd torn apart herself. Was it worth it? She traced a single character on the glass, then wiped it away, turned and sat back at her desk. Bernard's photo sat there, black and white, that shrewd, fond smile. As if he were saying, "Good job, kid. But you've still got a long road." Nora picked up the frame, wiped a speck of dust from the glass, set it back and pressed the intercom. "Get R&D to send the clinical data. And schedule a meeting with City Hospital's director. I want to discuss a rural equipment donation program." She hung up and turned to the investment proposal, reading line by line. Outside, dusk deepened. Her desk lamp clicked on, casting her silhouette crisp against the glass. Late that night, a text arrived from an unknown number in a southern seaside town. One line. "The flower shop opened. Name Nora's." Nora stared at it a long time. She didn't reply. But she saved the number with one letter in the notes field. W. Not Mom. That one letter said everything she wasn't ready to say and maybe never would be. The screen dimmed, showing her reflection. She realized she was smiling, not coldly, not bitterly, but just simply released. Outside, the city's lights blinked on in endless rivers, stretching to the horizon. Some were familiar, Huamao saved. The osmanthus scent kept alive. Some were unfamiliar, like the future. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Before the screen went dark, she glanced one more time at that saved number. Notes, W. No, Mom. She'd let go, but she wasn't forgetting. She knew the difference. And life was long. He had time to know everything.